So, typical interrupt handlers, they work in the software, and the in many systems the time taken for handling an interrupt is critical. Now, to understand what affects the execution time when an interrupt occurs, we understand what needs to be done, right? So, at a high level, so this is what we see, right? So, we have a device like the keyboard, mouse, or UART. It is sending an interrupt. The interrupt goes to the PLIC, right? And the PLIC then forwards the interrupt to one of the HART. So, up to this, it is all hardware, and what the at this particular point, the CPU core, that is the HART with a specific ID, say for example HART 0, has detected an interrupt that has occurred. So, what it does is that now the rest of the processing is mostly done in software. So, the software essentially first saves the program counter into the EPC, the exception program counter, moves the STVEC or the vector from the STVEC register into the program counter, and therefore now you have the first instruction in the supervisor mode to execute, right? It is in the supervisor mode because there would be a transition from the user mode to supervisor mode when it essentially occurred. So, saving of EPC of PC to EPC to loading of STVEC into PC is done automatically by the hardware. From here onwards, the software executes, right? So, we have essentially some function typically written in assembly which saves the entire CPU registers into the trap frame, right? So, we have a function like uservec which saves all the registers, the stack pointer, the temporary registers and so on into the stack frame, and then invokes the corresponding functions, right? The interrupt is essentially processed. For example, during this particular time, the CPU may essentially directly communicate with the device to identify, for instance, what character has been pressed in the keyboard or what character has been received in the UART and so on. Finally, it would invoke the CPU would essentially invoke the kernel scheduler or the OS scheduler, and all the registers stored in the trap frame would be essentially restored, right? So, all of this essentially takes time. So, the time taken to handle interrupts depends on the time taken for routing the interrupt through the PLIC, and also the time taken for the HART 0 to start servicing this interrupt. In addition to this, we have all of these four steps which are done in software. All this essentially affects the time taken for an interrupt handler. So, we call this as the interrupt latency, right? So, we have the user process executing and an interrupt occurs at say this particular point, and the time taken from the point where the interrupt occurs to the point where the interrupt handler executes is essentially called the interrupt latency. So, during this time, there is a shift from user mode to supervisor mode, there is a saving of context and so on, there is communication with the PLIC to identify which device has raised the interrupt, and finally the interrupt handler essentially executes, right. So, various systems essentially require different considerations for this interrupt latency. For real time systems, for instance, such as an operating system that is used in, say, an automobile or a spaceship, the operating system should essentially guarantee that the interrupt latency is always less than a specified value. So, there should be an upper bound to what the interrupt latency can be, right. So, this upper bound is required so as to ensure the real time behavior of the system. Now, another aspect to think about is the minimum and maximum interrupt latency. So, the minimum interrupt latency is mainly due to the interrupt controller. That is, the minimum latency is mostly affected by the time taken for the the platform level interrupt controller to channel this interrupt into the CPU core. The maximum interrupt latency is mostly influenced by the operating system, right? So that so the maximum latency is affected considerably by the design of the OS. So real time systems, for instance, one would need to be very careful about how interrupts are essentially handled so as to reduce this interrupt latency or this maximum interrupt latency that can occur. Okay. Now, how can the OS affect the interrupt latency, right? So there are various aspects. So first of all, the operating system can be sluggish, and but this can be easily optimized by more efficient coding. But what makes it actually critical is the fact that while the OS executes, there may be certain regions or certain operations which are atomic in nature. So, what are atomic operations? So, atomic operations essentially are a group of instructions which have to which cannot be essentially interrupted. So, if I have, let us say, a set of instructions, say I1 to say I10, we call them atomic if either all these 10 instructions execute at one stretch or none of them execute, right. It cannot be possible for few instructions to be executed, then an interrupt occurs, and then at a later time we have the rest of the instructions to execute, right. So, let us essentially look at why we need such atomic operations, right. So, let us say we have this kernel code. So, we are in supervisor mode and an interrupt occurs, and as we have discussed in a previous video, this would result in the interrupt handler being executed while we are still in the supervisor mode. Okay. Now, let us say that the kernel code essentially was executing this loop for I equal to 0 to I less than 1000, I plus plus, and you are simply just incrementing the value of x. Now, x is a global variable, right. Now, what you see is that in the interrupt handler, this value of x is simply multiplied by 5. Therefore, what you can observe is the final value of x depends whether an interrupt occurred or not, right. So, we do not want this to happen because if because what we see here is that this will essentially create some undeterminism. So, we want the value of x to be deterministic. So, therefore, what we do is we mark this region as essentially atomic, right. So, we say that there is atomic start and atomic end. Later in the course, we will see how to essentially define this atomic start and atomic end. But the fact over here is that by defining this piece of code, this for loop as atomic, it means that it cannot be interrupted. So, let us say that while this for loop which is atomic is essentially executing and x is incrementing, at some point we have a device, let us say the keyboard or the UART, which has raised an interrupt. Now, the interrupt handler would need to wait until this for loop completes and this atomic operation ends before it can essentially service the interrupt handler, right. So, now we see that there would be a delay or an increase in the maximum latency. So one should be very careful about how the OS is designed so as to eliminate such unnecessary weights on such critical variables such as, or these critical regions such as X, right. And said again, if we can essentially make this very deterministic, where the maximum interrupt latency can be bounded, then such systems would be useful in real-time environments like automobiles and so on. Linux, on the other hand, we call it as soft real-time systems. So Linux is a soft real-time system because the in quite a few regions, it's not or quite a few pieces of code, such atomic operations are present which can critically affect the interrupt latencies, and thus it is not very easy to essentially bound the maximum interrupt latency. So one way to essentially handle this situation is to keep the interrupt handler time, or the time within the kernel, as small as possible, right. So very specifically, if we can keep the interrupt handler time as small as possible, then it would essentially improve the interrupt latencies. So take this for example, right. This is an example of a nested interrupt. So what we mean by this is that we have the kernel code executing, and then an interrupt occurs which causes the first interrupt handler to execute, and while this interrupt handler is executing, we have a second interrupt which occurred, which caused the second interrupt handler to execute, and so on, right. So we have a two level of interrupts that essentially has occurred, right. And if we have a critical variable like the X that we have actually discussed, then the latency, or the due to the atomic operations that are required, the interrupt the time taken to essentially service the interrupt would increase due to these nested interrupts, right. So one way to essentially handle the situation is to create as small interrupt handlers as possible. In other words, we try to reduce the size of the interrupt handler to as less as possible, so that such nested interrupts are less likely. So Linux interrupt handler, for instance, are developed in such a way so that so Linux interrupt handlers, for instance, are designed in such a way that the main interrupt handler is as small as possible, right. So what a typical interrupt handler does is splits the entire handling into two parts. One is called the top half, and the second is called the bottom half. So the top half is the part of code which gets executed as soon as an interrupt occurs. So the interrupt occurs, the CPU detects the interrupt, it identifies the device, and there's a small piece of code which essentially communicates with the device and just does the bare minimum requirements, bare minimum aspects to essentially service that interrupt. For instance, it would save registers, unmask other interrupts, restore some registers, and return to previous context, right. The bare minimum amount of work is essentially done in the top half. The bottom half, on the other hand, is the deferred processing. So communicating with the device, setting various registers, changing memory, and so on, is essentially done in the bottom half. The advantage we get by this is the fact that the top half is as small as possible and would not typically affect and typically would not would have less chances of essentially uh, resulting in a nested interrupt, right. So this essentially improves the interrupt latencies, and let's say be a bit more deterministic.